a series where I sew dresses inspired by the books I read. This week's book is Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. It is a story about a girl called Ravenna. She is a sculptress in 1470s Florence, I believe, and she takes part in a sort of sculpting competition to save her brother who was put in prison by the Medici. There is magic to this as well, and we will get to that. Now, before I say anything else about the book, let me tell you about the dress I'm planning to make. So I think the cover of this book is beautiful, and I thought this sort of like purpley hue would probably the one that would suit my skin the most, because I don't do well with like very warm shades or autumnal shades. Oh no, a wedding picture. Oh, it's all good, girl. Yeah, I don't do good with autumnal shades. I'm better with like clearer colors, so I thought the purple was my safest bet. And I thought, it's Florence, it's sculpting, and I know this is not a sculpture, it's a painting, but I thought of this embroidery I've had for a while, and I thought it was perfect for this dress. I'm so excited about it. Now about the book. I'm not entirely sure how to do this in a graceful way. I'll do my best. I did not finish this book. Now you may ask, why, if you didn't like the book, make a dress? The thing is, I don't read the book and then make the dress. I make the dress as I read the book because I like the sort of like immersion of that. So that's my reasoning for that. And I'm still really enjoying making the dress, so I still want to post the video. It's just, I think this author's premises are really fun, and I'm drawn to them every single time. And I did actually have fun reading What the River Knows. I also, every once in a while in this, I would read a sentence and I would think, oh, this is lovely. Like, I really like this. And I genuinely do believe she has talent to write. I think this is an organizational issue, and I think whoever edited this genuinely let her down. This is not edited well, I think. The main issue of this, to me, is the structure of things. The plot, the magic, the love story, just the general like society, sort of like the world this is set in. Now, first and foremost, I think there's just a little too much going on, especially when it comes to the magic bits. So there's werewolves, there's vampires, there's witches, there's mermaids, there's dragons. Now, I did not finish this book, so I might actually it might all come up in the end. It did not seem like it though. I think she tries to add it to the story in sort of a like natural, organic way. So for example, with the dragons, she just sort of mentioned them like very offhandedly. It literally is just a sentence. I'm not sure I can find it right now, but it literally is just a sentence of like, and the dragons circling this like mountain in Italy. And it's just like, it is said by the character completely without any emotion. So it is important enough for her to mention, but it is not important for her life to have any emotion towards it. Like, there's no fear of the dragons, there's no like of the dragons, I don't even know what else the dragons do. I literally just know they circle this mountain. They might never sleep. And by the way, all those things, like the witches, warlocks, vampire, there's fae too. Fae, mermaids, werewolves, dragons, all of that coexists with 1400s Catholicism. And the church is quite central to the story, and we will get to that part because I have an issue with that. But it doesn't feel natural, and it doesn't work in my eyes. Like, it doesn't flow. The magic in her books and What the River Knows as well, in general, it feels like she wants there to be magic. Like, she likes the idea of there being magic in these books. It's just that it does also somehow feel like an afterthought. Like, it's not fleshed out. It doesn't really make sense. Our girl's magic too, it doesn't make sense to me. But again, to me, that's something like an editor should point out. That's something that someone should have told her. Now, I talked about this with my husband, and he said that he thinks it's also just like a lack of time issue, because her last book came out in, I think, November of 2024, which is just not a long time to have this. So this is set in the 1400s. It has a ton of magic. It has a lot of historical characters in it, and there's just not enough time to research all that and like write it in a way that is natural. This is a very small thing, but I don't like, she's a sculptor, as I said, and there's like a lot of sculpting knowledge just like dropped in there, and I know some people like that and see that as like, oh, she did her research, but to me it just feels like, oh, she did her research and now wants to show this to me all in this one page, and I don't find that actually interesting. You gotta make it feel natural. Alright, but my main issue with this is not actually the magic, it's the sort of like dynamic of the the whole world. So one scene that I think sort of shows this issue well is the scene where she tells her parents she's going to the competition to get the prize to save her brother. Her parents tell her, please don't do this. And that's actually my issue. So the reason why her parents don't want her to do this is because, one, people will judge them because she's a girl participating in this competition, and two, because she's used like witchcraft and they know that she will get excommunicated and they will as well. And for some reason she thinks her winning is gonna like fix this issue for them. I'm not sure about that, but I don't even mind her wanting to participate in the competition, like, you know, all consequences be damned, because she wants to save her brother, and I actually think that's a really good motivation. I just think her parents' reaction to this makes no sense. So her father and her mother tell her, like, please don't do this. But so we've established that this is a patriarchal society. It very much seems like it's just 1400s Italy with magic. Like, that's what the author's going for, I think. However, yeah, her parents are just sort of like, oh, please don't. And in my eyes, that would not be how it happens. Her father thinks they're going to get excommunicated from the church. Now, in this time period, it is massively important for you to be part of a group. This group is what makes sure that you're safe. You and your family are safe. That you have a business, that you have protection through people, that people are going to take care of you. I mean, that your soul gets saved. Like, you know, that you get to have a Christian burial. Like, that this is like massively important. And it gets mentioned too, the Christian burial. However, he's just like, oh, please don't. And it's like, that would not, like, in my head, this man would say, no, end of discussion. Like, you're not doing this. So that's just sort of like weird. You could argue that her parents are kind of scared of her because she uses witchcraft. However, I feel like that's really very much not how the scene is set up. I think that would be me reading into it. So to me, the mentioned consequences just don't reflect how people act in the story. It's another thing when she then participates in the competition and people notice, one, she's a girl, and two, she's used witchcraft. They like immediately turn on her. And while I get that part, the reader at this point has only seen her interact with one other person outside her family, which was her best friend, and she only exchanged like 2 sentences. So I don't actually know what this means to this character that she is now outside of this community. And also she doesn't really seem to like grasp how like earth-shattering this would be if this was truly the situation the author described. But yeah, the point that I'm making is religion is important in this world, actually so important that the Pope has point of view chapters. But it's not actually set up in a way that makes you think religion is actually important to these people's lives. Like, it sort of feels like everyone's very lukewarm on their faith, which I don't think would happen in this, because these people, like, she talks about church dresses, so she goes to church, and like it makes sense that she's going to church, so she would be in church every week. And in my eyes, she would either be very devout or she would be very against the church. If you spend that amount of time in church and like culturally around everyone who is religious, you cannot be lukewarm about this. Like, you know too much to not have an opinion either way. But nobody has any relationship with their faith. And it's also not at all explained, this sounds stupid, but did Jesus coexist with the dragons? Like... That's never, like, touched upon. Like, how does the clear existence of witchcraft affect people's faith? Like, what does that do to miracles? And where were the vampires this whole time, you know? Like, were the Fae around when Jesus was being crucified? Like, I don't, like, how does it work? Like, you gotta make it make sense. I don't understand how it fits in, and I think it just doesn't. Also, the Pope is not a good pope, and he doesn't seem very religious either. Now, I'm not Catholic, and I know there's been some bad popes in history, especially around the time of the Medici, when it was just a lot of nepotism and just, you know, popes having, you know, affairs and children, and like, you know, I understand that there's been some bad popes. However, this pope, he's just not a good bad pope. He's not selling me on this. He's just sort of running around having affairs and like looking for magical stones, and it's like, that doesn't seem like terribly on brand. On top of that, I think the pacing is quite strange. For example, I don't think she enjoyed writing the first bit of this. I don't think she cared about the competition or the setup of like the brother being a prisoner or just any of that. I think she just wanted to get through it, and I could tell. It just didn't make it enjoyable for me to read either. And also, it was just a lot of like info dumping that way. The love story was also weirdly paced. However, I have to admit that the love story probably wouldn't have worked for me even if I didn't have all those other issues with this, because I am not a morally grey man kind of gal. I prefer my men with their moral compasses already built in. I do not enjoy a she can fix him kind of story. I don't think that's a good love story. Flaws in a man, yes, please make them human, but not that. Like, have morals. So this just probably wouldn't have been my thing, even if I thought it was like written well. There was one scene where I was like, oh, maybe he's not a bad guy, he's just on the bad side, which like that I can work with, especially in, you know, hundreds of years ago, or in fantasy. Like I understand. However, I think that was just me reading something into the scene that wasn't actually there. But yeah, this man just not my cup of tea, and neither was she. Like, she didn't like him. Like, it's like, girl, what do you see in him? And also, I don't really think her character was like very fleshed out. I couldn't predict how she was gonna react to things, and it wasn't because I think she just wasn't fleshed out. Small addition, and my last critique of this is adult, and I understand why it's adult. There's a bit too much detail for it to be young adult. However, it reads young adult. It just reads young adult with too much detail. I've read her YA and it reads the same. Just she would have left out some details in that. So I think this just should have been YA. However, I think it's good that it's adult, because I think the like she can fix him kind of love story is worse if it's YA, because I think it can be genuinely harmful. But that's not the point here. That's no problem, because it does say it's adult, so you know, she's done nothing wrong there. There is, however, one thing that really made me like cringe, because it reads very YA. Our main girl seems very young, and it just makes for like the most uncomfortable scene later on. Our man, by the way, is supposed to be like an immortal and like a century old, so have that for context as well. I cannot remember any mention of our girl's age. I'm not sure how old she is, but she reads very young to me. So the author might at some point say that she's like 25 or whatever, but like she reads teenage to me. And there is one scene that gets spicy, and this girl is so fundamentally confused by what is happening to her, not in like a non-consensual way, even though there is one scene that I was like, I cannot root for this man anymore. But that scene, it was not non-consensual. It was just she's so fundamentally confused by what's happening to her that it just, the word innocent is used in like not the way that you'd want it to be. I could do without too much description anyways, but this was just, I like, I did not like that. I don't like that at all. And it felt just so terribly uncomfortable. But anyways, I have complained about this book enough. I promise I was not trying to be mean. I genuinely think most of this is an editing issue, and the love story just not working for me is just that. Like, it just didn't work for me. But yeah, I hope you still like this video, even though it's not a positive one. But next week, we're doing a book that I know is gonna be good. So, we've got that to look forward to. I'm sorry. And we will now see if I have the dress done. Alright, here is the dress. I really like it. I'm really pleased. I really like the embroidery, and I just really like the shape of dress. And I'm really excited that like I can wear an open back dress, because I used to never be able to find any that I would be able to wear with my shape. And I'm really pleased that I can make myself some that have an open back and that I get to wear. And yeah, I'm just really pleased that something that I like this much came out of a book that I didn't really like, you know. So it all has its good. I hope you still liked watching the video, even though it wasn't, you know, a glowing review. I promise I set out to like this. I at first thought, well, do I have to pick a different book now? I got all like worried about it, because I wasn't sure if anyone would want to hear it. But then I thought, well, my pretty much favorite thing to do with my husband is talk about books, whether we like them or not, especially books we didn't like. It's kind of fun sometimes. So I hope you liked this, and I will say though, next week's definitely going to be a positive one. I'm really excited. And yeah, I hope to see you next week. And until then, I hope you have a lovely time, friend. See you.